Yeah, everyone admitted for now.
Okay, wonderful. So, hello everyone. This is the final session of today. It's the Meet Haringey Council session. At the moment we have Councillor Seema Chandwani, who is one of your councillors on Haringey Council. She prefers to be called Seema, so I'm going to stop calling her Councillor Chandwani. And I will leave her to introduce herself, seeing as she knows herself best, but she is a fantastic representative for Haringey residents, very active, very engaged with all sorts of community issues, someone who is part of the people and stands up for the people. And I have no doubt that she's going to give you a really fascinating and engaging insight into Haringey Council, and touching on what we were talking about in the last session, really illuminate on how local politics touches the lives of everyday people, and why it's so necessary as a function and as a democratic institution in and of itself. So Seema, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Don't worry if you haven't got your camera on. For some peculiar reason, I can only see one person at a time. So I've obviously pressed some button. When you get to my age, this is really good that you can at least log on. So my name's Seema, and I'm a councillor, as has just been explained. And I've lived in Tottenham all of my life. I'm a councillor for West Green Ward, which is in Tottenham, but I went to West Green Primary School. So this is like, I don't really go very far. I just stay in West Green and spend my whole life here. I became a councillor in something called a by-election. So normally there's like local council elections every 4 years. But if anything happens to anybody, like if they move or if they die or anything, they have to step down for work. Then it triggers off something called a by-election. So I came in just before Christmas in 2018. So I am the most inexperienced and newest councillor in the borough. So that's one thing. The other thing is, before I became a councillor, I was really active in the community, and I was active in the Labour Party as well. But I kind of felt like I was more of an activist and a campaigner than a politician, and I haven't stopped being like that. So one of the campaigns that I really worked hard on was the Save the Youth Centres campaign, and worked with young people to save their youth centres from being closed from cuts. So that was really a kind of way for me to really understand how the council worked as well. And I think after that, it really inspired me to get, why am I going to meetings with young people to beg these politicians to not close their youth centre? Why don't I become one of the politicians? Was my kind of first inspiration at that moment. I think it's really important that you don't feel that to be a councillor, you've got to look or dress or kind of act in a certain way. I know that sometimes it's like a stereotype of what a councillor looks like. So I take all of my councillor duties in my Nike trainers, and I dress in jeans, and I speak really Cockney like I am now. And because I'm from Haringey and I want to represent Haringey, I don't want people to feel like I'm different to them or special than them or more important than them. I'm meant to be reflecting how people in Haringey are. So not everyone is like me in Haringey, but not everybody is like a suited, booted politician in Haringey too. So it's really important that everyone feels that they are important in Haringey and they have a space on that table, and that they don't have to change themselves to be having a space on that table. I guess the next thing I want to say to you is that being a councillor and an MP is not really a job. Like, we do get paid. You get paid as a councillor, you get something called an allowance. And so it's meant to make sure that you can participate in politics and it's not costing you money. So I still have a day job, but I participate and get an allowance to make sure that, I can go to meetings and I don't have to worry about my travel, etc. Because I'm a cabinet member, I get extra money as well because it's seen as a special responsibility, but it's not a job. So tomorrow the electorate can vote me out. Well, not tomorrow, but in the election. And you know, I can't say, well, I was really good and I want to keep my job. It's not a job. You're elected to represent in a role, and if you stop doing that, then the public can say goodbye to you. It's really about your voice and your experience and your lived experience, and what you're bringing to the table. So it's not like an interview where you're like, yeah, I'm really good at maths and I'm really good at this. It's more about you kind of saying, do you know what, I grew up and 2 people in my school got stabbed and killed, and I really want to do something about that. It's your lived experience and what you felt that you have experienced in your life. And it could be anything. It could be because you were helping your gran at home when she was sick, and you know, you didn't feel that people were helping her, and then you will now want to become a politician because you want better health care and social care for older people after what you experienced and lived through with your gran. So all of these lived experiences are really, really important. Councils are really complicated. So you could come to the council because your bins haven't been collected, and we'll sort out your bins, or you could be involved because you know your child is involved in offending, so they come to the council's youth offending team. It could be antisocial behaviour like drugs and fights outside your house, and it could be that you want a new zebra crossing so that your little brother can go to school and not get run over. It could be child protection to the fact that your drains are blocked. It's like a really massive institution, the council. They are, you know, it's not just for one age group of people. So we work with children and babies. So we'd be looking at kind of childcare. We'd be looking at helping mothers kind of, you know, with the children's centres to be able to help look after their children. And then we could be working with older people who are at end of their life and they're dying and they need care at home and they need someone to help them wash and bathe. So it's huge. It's a huge service. And just to give you like a rough idea, and I've made this up, but I just want you to kind of see the whole spectrum. You could phone up on Monday morning and moan to the council that your bins haven't been collected, which is our responsibility, and we'll get that sorted. And by Friday, you could phone up and say that your father has just had an accident and he's been released from hospital, and there's no one at home to help him wash and bathe, and he needs urgent care at home. And so this is the same person phoning up the same company for the same council for really different things. I think the other thing that I want to say to you is that it is taxpayers' money, and so some people just want a good library from their council, and some people want real deep help because they've got a severely disabled child and they want you know, some support, whether it's we help that child get into a school, we help them look after the child at home. So different people, even though they all live in Haringey, would want something different from the council. When you're a politician, you have to decide what your priorities are. So in some boroughs, they turn the street lights off at midnight because they might not see personal safety as a priority. So I'm responsible for street lights, and there's no way that they're being turned off when it's dark because I don't want anyone to get attacked or killed. Some councils have closed their libraries. We have kept all of ours open. Some councils don't have any support for disabled adults, and we've decided that we want to make sure that disabled adults have all of the support and care that they have and need. So your politics and what's important to you and what you believe in shapes how you want your council to run, and then you decide, you tell people how you would have a vision, and then hopefully people will elect you. So I'll leave my comments there. I don't know whether we're going to take questions now or a bit later.
We can. I just wanted to say that Cllr Peray Ahmet is also
Okay.
on the call. She is a councillor for representing the Knoll Park ward as well. Councillor, are you there?
She's also the newly elected leader of Haringey Council, so very much looking forward to hearing Councillor Ahmet.
you want me to go now? Sorry.
Yes, please.
Sorry, I'm waiting for a cue.
No, apologies. I got distracted by the wonderful earrings you're wearing. See,
Oh,
the leader of our
leopard print.
council. Yeah, we've got such fashionable councillors in our borough. It's fantastic. Got the lipstick earrings.
So just I'm obviously following on from Seema, who I should add, I used to work with, was it about 15, 20 years ago, Seema? We used to both, I met Seema about 20 years ago. We used to both work for an organisation, which I think they probably exist in some parts, called Connections North London. And it used to be all about careers advice and other sorts of support for young people. So me and Seema met there around 20, maybe it was more than 20 years ago. I won't say, Seema will get cross with me. So
thanks, Councillor Ahmet. I was hoping that they would think that we were at least 25, but now you've made them realise that we're the same age as their mum and dads.
Times two, maybe. So Catherine asked me to come along and just say a bit about myself and how I became leader of the council. So that happened at the end of May. So just going to give you a bit of a bio, and I think you're all here, you're all Haringey people, you all go school in Haringey. So just a bit about me. So my parents came to this country in the 1950s and 60s. They're both Turkish Cypriot from Cyprus, so they came in the 1950s and 60s, escaped war and also other situations that was going on there. So they both came here, settled in Hackney, and then moved to Haringey in the late 60s, where my mum remains to this day. So that was my kind of background. I went primary school and secondary school, and I don't know, put your hand up if you recognise any of these schools, but I went to Earlham Primary School, and I went to White Hart Lane, which is now Woodside High. That was my old school. So just a bit about those schools at that point. Seema went Hornsey, I believe, didn't she? Hornsey, we got Hornsey girls over there. So I went to White Hart Lane at a time when it was challenging, to say the very, very least. This was in the late 80s, early 90s, and I believe White Hart Lane at that point was kind of one of the worst performing schools in the borough at the time. As I said, very, very highly challenging, and I could probably tell a few stories that they'd make your toes curl, so I won't. But kind of it was through my experiences, you know, at that school, and kind of growing up in Wood Green, which is where I've lived most of my life. It's kind of what's informed my political opinions very, very strongly, because you know, growing up in a borough like Haringey, you do realise the kind of differences in, you know, social class, ethnicity, race, gender, lots of areas. That kind of informed my very early views on such matters. And going White Hart Lane, where, you know, it was you know, basic survival at that point, and I'm glad to say that the school is much improved. So when I left there at the age of 16, I did leave without many qualifications, went on to work, and then had to go back and retake and then go on and do A-levels and then my various degrees. And, you know, for me, it was very much about realizing that knowledge is power. And of course, you don't need a degree to get into politics, certainly not to be a councillor. You know, if anything, being a councillor is all about what you can do for your local community and your understanding of your local community. But for me, it was really key that knowledge was power. And both my parents had left school at the age of 11 in Cyprus. Neither were formally educated in either Turkish or English. So for me, that opened a lot of doors and still has. Going on from that, I think similar to Seema, but not perhaps quite as focused, I spent a lot of time working with children and young people, setting up services and doing quite a lot of direct work in that area and working for local councils, until about 7-8 years ago I decided I wanted to be a councillor, you know, and it took a lot of hard work, campaigning, thick skin, you know, I think that's something to add, and, you know, and all the challenges that come with belonging to a political party, particularly one that hasn't been in power for quite a few years nationally. And we've had, obviously, the past 11 years has been quite tough because of austerity and everything that has come with that. And being part of a council and being a councillor, you know, is not been easy at all. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. That's kind of a whiz through. And then, you know, end of May, I was elected leader of the council, which is an absolutely huge privilege for somebody like me, somebody from my background. And I am the first woman of colour to actually be leader of the council in Haringey. And it's quite nice actually, because if you look at North London as a whole, there's quite a few female leaders. So we've got Enfield's got a female leader, we've got a woman leader in Camden, we've got a woman leader in Islington. So there's quite a few women. And if you actually look at the national stats, it's something really low, like I don't know, 10% or something overall of council leaders are women. It's a very, very small number. And when you look even further at women of colour, it's even less. So North London's doing pretty well. And yeah, I'll leave it there. I don't know if there's any questions. I can talk a bit more about the kind of areas I'm responsible for.
I think Martha would like to ask a question. She's got a hand raised.
You're on mute, Martha.